Hey everyone, welcome back to the lab. In this video, we're going to be talking about 4 essential components for crafting effective AI prompts, a framework for accurate, consistent results for your business from an AI automation expert. So AI will change the world, but maybe in different ways than we expect. I personally use AI for isolated tasks like ideation, rewriting and formatting, and as a better form of search. But I've struggled to get good, consistent results across more generalized use cases. Rick Mulready is a podcast and YouTube host focused on building AI automations to improve business processes. Over the years, he's helped thousands of creators build effective business systems and improve them with targeted AI automations. In this post, we'll share Rick's 4 essential components for crafting AI prompts that get accurate results consistently. Rick first shared these tips on episode 759 of the Smart Passive Income podcast, listed here. 4 essential components for effective AI prompts. So the first component is to set perspective. Setting perspective allows the AI to take on the role of the agent you're looking for. This allows it to give better results, pulling on the context, knowledge, and perspective of the given role. For example, you can imagine that world-class business strategist and middle school student may give you vastly different results for the same task. So some examples that you might use are like you are a world-class business strategist if you're looking for a kind of strategy result. You might also ask you are a junior developer if you wanted to get the perspective of a junior developer maybe earlier in their career. And you might say you are a content strategist for a top 10 tech podcast if you have a tech podcast and maybe are looking for ideas for content that will work well with your audience. The next component is to set criteria. So setting criteria is crucial for the AI to give reasonable results that fit your expectations. Humans require the exact same context, but often can infer these unspoken rules from past context and experience working with you or through their role. AIs are a bit worse at this as they don't really have a particular kind of experience, so it's helpful to give them guardrails to play within. So some examples of these are results must be readable in 1 minute, which will keep it from writing you a whole essay if that's not what you're looking for. Similarly, you might say the answers need to be between 500 and 1,000 words if you're using this to get some sort of longer form blog post or essay or something like that. Or if you're looking for some kind of actionable steps to do something, maybe writing a guide for how to accomplish X, you might say that the steps must be completable within 15 minutes to prevent it from giving you some sort of steps that might take days or a lot of back and forth. So the next thing you can do is give it your instructions. So now that you've set the perspective the AI should work from and the criteria for it to play in, you can tell it what you want it to do. And this is probably what most people are only doing in their prompts. But, obviously examples of this are like you could write it to, or tell it to write a YouTube script for you. You could tell it to write a tweet, maybe in the form of an ad or a way to share like benefits of a product you're making. Or you could also tell it to give you ideas for a mascot for a programming language, which is what I did for F# listed here. Okay, and the last component of a good, effective prompt is to give examples. So AI is very good at translating from one version of something into another version of that thing. Providing examples of the format you're expecting and some examples of exceptional responses, if you have them, will allow it to better understand what you're looking for so it can bias and craft the results it gives you to be more like those exceptional responses. And so some examples of this are you can have it in kind of plain text. You could say, give me example blog post titles in the form of topic, for who, so that. Shout out ship 30 for this kind of format. You could tell it to give you responses in the form of a bulleted list with the top 3 reasons you'd choose each, or choose for each, to try and make it so it only gives you very readable, easy to scan kinds of responses. And then once you've kind of given it the instructions for the format you're looking for, it's often ideal to give it at least one example response in the form that you want, so that it can both have the instructions you want, but also a kind of format that it can copy and paste to use later on. So those are the 4 essential components, but we do have a final step that's basically useful if not required every time you're working with an AI like this to try and get these accurate, consistent results, is that you're probably going to have to iterate on the prompt. And so it is possible for you to get the perfect results in the first pass of prompting, but often you're going to need to iterate on it. Human language is just not the most precise form of data conveyance. This is why we have programming languages, which are a subset of precise instructions of language, because, just writing in plain text is just not precise enough to do things accurately and consistently. So just like with a human, when you're talking to the AI, when you're asking the AI for things, things might get lost in translation. Maybe the instructions just aren't quite clear enough, or maybe some piece of information or context is missing from one side of the conversation. And so if you aren't getting what you want, you're probably going to need to iterate on your prompt to improve it. And so here's 3 things that Rick recommends for iterating on these prompts efficiently. And so the first one obviously is to just change your input prompt. Maybe you should revisit each of these components, and if it's doing too much of one or not enough of one, maybe change the wording of it, maybe add an additional one saying it's important, maybe clarifying it. Oftentimes when you kind of change it, you're kind of just like guess and checking, and there might be a slightly better way to do this. And so one example is you can actually just ask the AI what would make it better. And so you could say like, what prompt should I use to get you to do whatever I want? And it's going to spit back what it thinks the ideal response is, or the ideal prompt is. And so you can kind of compare what it says is the best with the one that you have, and try out some of those. Another thing is like, it often is missing some clarity or information, but it might be hard to figure out what that is. And so similarly, you can just ask it, what information do you need to effectively do whatever task you want it to do? And it's going to tell you what it thinks are the most important based on its experience, its training, things like that. And then you can, again, use that to compare to your prompt and kind of change them that way. Next. So I find today's AIs to be a cool piece of technology. I don't think they're ready to disrupt or take over the world quite yet, but I do think they've got promise and will only get better over time. If you like this post, you might also like 3 areas I'm exploring to build more side projects faster and cheaper in 2024, stop wasting your time on bad startup ideas, or my journey from software engineer to entrepreneur and back again. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.